My name is Adriana Pohlmann. I am a professor chemical of UVIS. I'm going to coordinate this session, and I'd like to thank the opportunity of having this topic in this meeting, congratulate the organizers, and I would like also to say that the discussion, this multi-disciplinary discussion, is very important, saying that it is very important for the hard sciences, and we will have a discussion that we will try to build new dialogues and languages between these interfaces. As in science and technology, we had this opportunity now in a very enormous velocity. We can have this interdisciplinary language, and we will bring to our floor international regulation in nanotechnology, in science and economic policy. So I would like first to invite Dr. Marcelo, who is he's in the Brazilian Association of Chemical Industry. He is a chemical engineer by the University of Rio Grande do Sul, and Marcelo directs the areas of industrial matters as health, security in the environment, quality and technology, norms and technologies. He is in charge of the structure of the program, of that program since 1981. He represents the BICIN and the Council, International Council of the Chemical Industry, and he acts in the Responsible Care Group. Since 1993, he has participated in anyone can look in his curriculum to see in what he has already participated, and I'd like to welcome you for the speech. Thank you for your presence. For those who are here and awake, I'll ask if you're all. Good afternoon. I'm glad that I was invited to come here representing BICIN, and it was a surprise for me to be here in Rio, because I am from Rio. Rarely, lately, I have had the opportunity to spend 3 days here. So when they said that the event was going to stay in Rio, I was very happy. My family lives here, so I'm close to home. But my theme, nanochemistry, I said nanochemistry as a provocation. If it's the next wave of industry, this is my going to try to cover this. BICIN and the Brazilian chemical industry, and in the next 10 years, nanotechnology and the path for sustainability in chemistry, and the ICCA and nanotechnology, and we're going to have a definition of nanomaterials, and this is subject of interest, so let's quickly go through this. I usually pass a bit the 20 minutes. So the BICIN was founded in 1964. It congregates more than 200 associates. There are more than 148 manufactured manufacturers of chemical products and 58 services that are available. There are more than 1,300 chemical industries in São Paulo. In Brazil, more than 3,000 companies. So this is the chemical industry installed in the country in 2008. We are now in. We have the results of 2010 in December, and that in our annual meeting. The year of 2009 was not a typical one due to the crisis. And what you're seeing in 122 billions was not that sum, didn't reach that sum in 2009, but in 2010, maybe $135 billion, with plus 10% that are not reported in this data in those associations, because these small companies can generate more, about 15 billions. So we're talking about of an industry that has about $145 billion. So in nanochemistry, all these areas will be affected by the development of nanotechnology. So these are the numbers that probably you cannot see. What we see here are the chemical products that have to do it. It cooperates with 3% of the added value in the national value. So we are between the third or fourth in the added value in the growth of the country, gross product. And why is nanochemistry it's part of the business. And yesterday I was here and listening to a presentation, and I remembered some things that are first, that what we do not know in the past are condemned to be repeated. So, and you have to be careful when you don't know where you're going, because you don't know how to get there. So you have to plan the future, or else you won't know how to get there. This is our data that this is of a course that I minister, talking about the developments and interests in the environment, and I was based on these curves that you're seeing there are very arbitrary and subjectively. I studied story for some time, history, to see what they were, people thought of what people considered social, economical, and the sum of all those. So, and then you see that I placed chemistry in the moment when it began to be a science. It was when there was a change in the environment. And secondly, you'll see that there was a big and drastic change in economy. But this, when we look at all the interests that are evolve with time, and then we see all these issues that are considered social, and maybe in the next years, for example, 2030, we will not be more worried, concerned with population violence, employment, drugs, etc. And looking at the economical aspects, we'll see that in the subsistence agriculture, in our future today, we are discussing industry and transportation, and they are having more and more technological approaches, and things are all continue to be evolving into climate. We're seeing it under another aspect, also local pollution, and we're gradually migrating to the use of energy. So all this means that we'll have to have a sustainability of interests. We'll have to have a convergence. This is almost a natural imposition, because we will not be able to be always discussing different ideas, because this will not lead us to sustainability. And we're seeing now the infrastructure, innovation, safety in products, safety in processes, changes in climate, infrastructure, innovation. These are some of the aspects that are going to be addressed in the eventually. Now, talking about the cycles of chemistry, for us to understand its context. In chemistry, we saw other waves and other moments in chemistry when technology or as solutions that were delivered to society when we abandoned what was known as alchemy in the end of the 800s, and when we began to grow but not reach maturity of chemistry, and until we arrived to nanochemistry and biochemistry. We're still going to face a period of growth and even a birth of nanotechnology and its posterior maturation. When we talk about a new wave, we look at in this last century, and we see some evolutions that happened in which there was industrial development in Brazil in the 50s, but in the world in the 20s. And that's when there was a big chemical production, because it was the principal concern of the companies. But this was a moment that was characterized until the beginning of the 60s. And today we're talking about a chemical security that goes from the 60s until maybe the year 2020. And this is where Abiquim works, because and now we're talking about the management of nanotechnology that is coming in a period that we're beginning to call as a green chemistry. So this is how things should maybe happen in the next years. In the past, the chemistry was typically of industry. Now we are imagining that nano and biochemistry are in a more evolved period in which the concern is not pollution but of safety of the products. So 1920 up to now, there was growth in the social maturity. So I would like to say that it's not because the chemical industry is working more safely, it's the society that requires more today. So the patterns that are required for nano are what is being done in nanotechnology. The ethical mentality and procedures in management technologies are those of another time. We are applying this nanotechnology in a different entrepreneurial environment. After 1960, 1970, we dedicated until the 80s to have good factories and good processings. And today we have the concept that the companies use. They make a project of molecules. This is what we talk about. We're not talking more about pollution in the factories. If you look for the economy of atoms, synthesis of substances, there are some things like we have renewable sources and uses of raw material. All the process is what's going to orient the industry for the implementation of nanotechnology. Nanotechnology and in industry were not created to harm the worker. This is something of 1920. This is not how we see this. We have to think of not creating something that will bring problems to a consumer nowadays. So when we think of chemicals safety, the legislations that are appearing in the world, and especially here, the focus since 1992 in Rio de Janeiro is the safety of products. Yesterday we were talking of what maybe was this issue of chemical security. So this mentality, be them nano or not, it has been around for a long time. So to call this attention here, you're seeing the psychem. This is an approach that it's the safety in international safety of chemical substances. This is their page of the UNEP that of psychem that took about 8 years to be finalized, and it is in process of negotiation. And one of the emerging policy issues is that they talk about nanotechnologies and manufactured nanomaterials. This is what is being discussed in international discussions, because what we want that in 2020, what was defined in 2002 in Johannesburg, that chemical products have to be manufactured in a safe way, and nano products have to be manufactured in the same way. So we are working so that in the year 2020 this will happen, at least in events where there are international discussions in which nanotechnology will be discussed as a safely with security. So this is being treated. That does not only involve productive and academic sectors, but it involves governments, NOGs, workers' unions, and all parts of the world who have to get together and discuss what has to happen when we're going to migrate from a concept of chemical safety to the process of a project of molecule. But nano, when it will reach its maturity stage of normal production, it will not be made in another way that would not be this. You can await that certainly you're going to work in companies that will have to have this vision of business, because they will not be able to live in this future in the next 10, 15 years, in the future that many people here were discussing in our last session. I have been graduated for 30 years, so 30 years, who's in the beginning of a career now is going to get this phase in the future. Will certainly do that. our program is responsive care, and this is our and this comes from general management that are international, and also with Abikin, and they reach this level of the companies, and that this is where they have all the work. How are they doing this? This is also a gradual process, the evolution of management in chemical industry. We can separate this in three models: the traditional model, the model of chemical security, and the other one of sustainability. Who's thinking of controlled management that has to attend to legal standards? They have their philosophy that sees this. It has to produce well within a reality of a legislation that exists. SAICM that and all the others agencies talk about safe management. One day maybe there are some companies that are working with this. There is an international discussion that is happening about sustainable standards, and the focus here are the processes of sustainable products, and nanotechnology is in this point, because this is the biggest challenge until 2020. Many companies, as they're talking about this, they're talking about an action of differentiation of the market, but it is not anymore an option to make chemistry as we used to do it in the past. Now in the program that we have now, that is the responsible care, we have to see how we're going to face or give answers to the necessities of society, and this is being done strategically, coordinated, because of the existence of SAICM, because we have the structure of this strategy that is being implemented. It is not a recent thing. It is very well detailed here in Brazil. We have a strategic map that is being implemented by the companies with a certain logic, trying to improve the performance of the industry, and focusing on the management, and seeing the management of the products with the arsenal of the productive chains. And with this, we're going to the development of more sustainable products. If we don't know how to take care of our clients, and to be in contact with the consumer, we will not be able to generate these products. So chemical will be always a chemistry that will be linked with to see what the last user, consumer, needs. This is all has been mapped to have the sustainable development. We have to prepare for other 3,000 companies that are not associated with Bikin, the small and medium companies. And we have this global product strategy, GPS, and we're going to work with a project that will involve other sectors. I think it's as if we had a big norm of management that has a bigger function than the structure of the national award. So we're talking of a big management sophistication. We have to see everything that I say, that there is a site that where you can look at this. And now I'm going to, I still have some few minutes. What I want to show to you is the reality of nanotechnology as it is in Brazil, where, for example, where I work, and what is happening today. And a big important discussion is in the National Chemical Industrial Pact, and this would be to discuss what will happen in the next years, and also go back in time to see what are the principal demands on industry, and to see that we have some opportunities. And this document will detail these opportunities. So what is happening? It has the condition of making the Brazilian industry to reach the fifth in the world. Not today, it's the ninth. Today, Brazil has a deficit balance, and it should be a leader in green chemistry. So what does this mean? We can only make a detail, which this document is available. You can see it in the internet. To be like that, you have to have a economical great Brazilian growth, economical, and it has to deal with. There is a project of 10 years that in all what was seen, we didn't talk about nanotechnology because this issue is so difficult to be quantified in business, in the corporate world, that we maybe didn't detect what will be our market, our concrete action with nanotechnology. But we're saying that we're going to try to develop these nanotechnologies. But although we do know that in the next 10 years we'll have to have investments in $170 million to guarantee a growth of 4% a year in the next 10 years, to be able to $20 billion for biochemistry, green chemistry. So this total will have to double the chemical industry in 10 years. And this will be based in some of the premises. If Brazil wants to grow like for example in the political campaigns, as they say it, there should be an enormous investment to be done. Now, talking about what is the ICCA, it's the international position. It's the International Council of Chemical Associations. It is the association, and it has participated in all the events like SICM, and with regulations with POP, PIC, and the CWC. So this is what it serves. It is a leader of our intentions. This is their site. And why did I show this? It's part of what we call global product strategy, which I think you should see. This is a chemical information search. Our intention is to have in another year, to have more three or until 5,000 substances. You will go in with a chemical name, so you have a database that is very interesting. You can access this. We have a safety summary, and this document is already happening as a database of the chemical products. The function of this is to take to people who are not technical informations about chemical substances. So we are have a compromise with the development of so that we can have a nano industry and based worldly, but it will exist where we will have the possibility of having an industry, and we have an advantage, a competitive advantage in bio, and we have to also show that we have this in chemistry. So we should be well coordinated for this. The ICCA wants to have a regulatory harmonization. Industry is not pro not having legislation. We want a legislation, but it has to be one that understands that nanotechnology is a science and evolution, but is strongly focused in our principles and in a big challenge that is the safety of nanomaterials. Responsible development and understanding what is important in the adequate resources. Quickly talking about the definition of nanomaterials. Now we have a document that is what is the definition of nanomaterials in industry, and larger scope was under the discussions of the European Union, and what was discussed in Brussels. I'm seeing that DuPont is waving, saying that we were part of this group, and we propose that there is as nanomaterial something that is solid and particulate that will be fabricated in nanoscale scale, that will be based on ISO TS 27687 2008, and their aggregates and agglomerates with a cutoff of either 10 more aggregates that be defined by ISO, or less than 50% or more aggregates or agglomerates consisting of nano objects. So this is a justification for this. The 10% that are directed to processes that we call top down. We go from the bulk substance to the nano, and in going through physical processes. And when we do bottom up, 50% or more for who is studying chemistry. Why 50%? Because we don't see nobody is interested in doing bottom up with 10% of the material. It is senseless to do bottom up to produce 10% of material with feasible nano characteristics. So the present and future challenges, we have the property rights, consumer issues, and especially the enterprise development. Nanotechnology is being produced in small scales for people who are entrepreneurs but are not in a corporate world, because they don't have they don't know it. To work in the chemical industry is much more safer than working in a university, but the companies and they're born inside the universities, but this is a cultural thing, and I'm not going to extend myself very much. So, in conclusions, Abikin considers nanotechnology as one of the promising new technologies. We don't have the numbers yet of investments. It is happening, nanotechnology, and in a time of chemical safety. And it is in a phase of accelerated maturation that makes it difficult the creation of standards, legals or voluntary. We are not in a wild environment. We have some legislation we have to improve, but we're not in a non-structured situation. The government maybe doesn't know very much what it wants, but we can now discuss about nanotechnology in a much safer way than before. Thank you very much.